Donald Trump released a ad recently that absolutely and utterly just completely eviscerates Nancy Pelosi. I recommend you just to Google it and check it out. It's actually a really powerful and well put together ad that just really paints Nancy Pelosi as a really out of touch elitist. I mean, in that ad, they, highlight how she went on, was I think the Late Late Show with James Cordon, however you say his last name, and how she was, showing off her two, her two freezers that, by the way, I believe cost around 11 fucking $1,000 each. She had two of them, were full of ice cream, and how she gets them delivered, and how the people in her household, fight over the different varieties, so they had to get two to make sure everybody had some. And then this ad juxtaposes, Nancy Pelosi with her, two $11,000 fridges full of this, delivered ice cream to people, saying, I'm starving, I don't have anything to eat. They show their fridges, there's nothing in them, and while, Nancy Pelosi is there in her, you know, palatial estate, somewhere in San Francisco or wherever it is, showing off her $11,000 fridges full of ice cream, and her thinking like there's nothing wrong about this, or just she just does not have she's just so fucking out of touch. It's unbelievable. I mean, 26 million people have lost their jobs, have filed for unemployment since mid-March. 26 million. It's about one out of every six workers has lost their jobs since mid-March, and here Nancy Pelosi is, going on this late show, getting interviewed, showing off her, 20 with like $22,000 in fridges with ice cream, and while people are really struggling and suffering, and just shows again how completely out of touch with reality that Nancy Pelosi, along with pretty much all of the Democratic leadership, is. I believe she is one of the wealthier members of Congress, worth tens, I think maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. So she's just completely out of touch with the reality that most people in the United States are experiencing right now. I mean, even before this economic crisis happened due to the coronavirus pandemic, it's like 40%, or maybe it's even more, 40% of the US couldn't afford a $400 emergency. That's obviously much higher right now. And here Nancy Pelosi, goes on this TV show and flaunts her two 11 fucking $1,000 fridges, while people are really struggling. People don't have health care, people are losing their jobs, people are, I mean, fuck, like, people are struggling to pay rent, pay their mortgages, all this shit. And here you think it's a good idea to go on the Late Late Show with James Corden and show off your fucking two ridiculously expensive fridges. Is there nobody on her like campaign staff, or is there nobody on her house staff, or does she not have any advisors or even family members? It's like, Nancy, this might be a bad look. Maybe when you get interviewed, you should maybe talk about, maybe we need a rent or mortgage freeze, or a general strike, or Medicare for all, or a Green New Deal. Maybe you shouldn't go on there while, 26 million people have lost their jobs since mid-March, and show off your two 11 plus $1,000 freezers that are full of, expensive ass fucking bougie ice cream that gets delivered to your house, and how you say you couldn't live, you don't know what you would do if you didn't have ice cream. Maybe that's a good look when we're in the greatest, economic crisis since the Great Depression, and it might even exceed that. Maybe that's a good look, and lay off the elitist bourgeoisie ice cream eating stuff that you just did. That's not a good look. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. This is why, and this is why Trump was able to make such a devastating ad against Nancy Pelosi. Again, go check it out. It just again really paints her in just this really elitist and out of touch light by using her own words. And I mean, because that's what she is. If you're super wealthy, you have tens or hundreds of millions of dollars like Nancy Pelosi does. I'll Google before I post this video and leave it in the description box, her actual net worth. But I mean, you're not having to worry about, how you're going to pay rent, how you're going to pay your mortgage, how you're going to put food on the table, how are you going to pay for your health care because we don't have Medicare for all, how we have a for-profit rapacious, healthcare system. You don't have to worry about that shit. You got your tens and thousands of dollars of fridge, those two fridges sitting next to each other, full of ice cream, when a lot of people in the US don't know where their next meal is going to come from. We have high poverty, we have high child poverty rates, and instead of being maybe focused on helping people out right now, she was like, well, I would just die if I didn't have my two, $10,000-$11,000 fridge freezers full of ice cream that gets delivered to my house, because we all like different flavors and we need different flavors. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, how completely out of touch and tone deaf do you have to be to go on TV right now during a complete economic crisis and meltdown and then show off your just completely disgusting and ridiculous, fridges that cost $11,000 when people are struggling, people are suffering. Again, 26 million people. Like, how do you think this is going to come across to those people who have lost their jobs since mid-March? 26 million while you're on TV showing off your just completely ridiculous and disgusting wealth and status while people are really suffering. And again, it's the people most vulnerable and marginalized are suffering right now. The people out of work, the people, the undocumented folks, the communities of color who have been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus itself. Children living in poverty, people not having health care, all of these things, people not be able to pay their rent, mortgage. Again, it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. This is why, Congress has such a low approval rating, is because of people like Nancy Pelosi are completely out of touch with the reality of what most people in the U.S. are facing, because they're bought and paid for by these, wealthy corporate interests, the oil and gas companies, the pharmaceutical industry, Wall Street, big real estate, all of this stuff, while completely doing the work for them and not advocating for the average person in the U.S. It's so she doesn't think there's any issue with going on the Late Late Show and showing this off, because it's like, well, I'm not really representing the voters. I'm representing these corporate interests, these wealthy campaign donors, and they're in the same boat as me. We're all doing fine. Fuck off, peasants. I don't really care about you. Again, this is just another example of why we need to get Nancy Pelosi out of office and support her opponent, Shahid Buttar, a constitutional lawyer who has, while Nancy Pelosi was, butting up with the war criminal George Bush, he was fighting, those things in court. He stands up for human rights. He stands up for the working people of the United States. And he would just do so much better in that position than Nancy Pelosi was, who is completely out of touch and is a sellout. Peace. Much love.